Out the car now.
Sir, may I ask the reason?
Reason? A black man in a car worth more than his whole bloodline. That's the reason.
I'm cooperating, officer.
Good boy. Even the dumb ones can follow orders. See, Sutton?
Right.
Take your hands off me.
You open that mouth again, I'll shut it for good. Your kind don't get to talk here.
He swept the man's legs out, drove him face first into the asphalt, knee on his spine, gravel grinding into his cheek until the skin split, and they were laughing like this was the best fun they'd had all week. That laughter lasted exactly 3 more minutes, until the dispatch radio crackled, until a voice read a name, and every sound on that road went dead. But to understand what happened on that road, we need to go back, 5 hours earlier, 90 miles south, a small town called Greenville. Franklin Taylor sat at his mother's kitchen table, same table he'd sat at since he was 6 years old, same plastic tablecloth with the yellow flowers, same smell of cornbread cooling on the counter. He was 52, 6'3", broad shoulders that still fit the frame of the man who'd spent 15 years as an FBI special agent before crossing over to state law enforcement. 28 years carrying a badge, 28 years of rooms going quiet when he walked in, sometimes out of respect, sometimes out of something else entirely. 3 weeks ago, Governor Caldwell had appointed him state police superintendent, the youngest black man to ever hold the position. The news ran statewide. Papers printed his photo next to the governor's. His phone didn't stop ringing for 4 days, but tonight he wasn't the superintendent. He was just Ruth Taylor's oldest son, eating cornbread and listening to his mother talk about her garden. "The tomatoes came in early this year," she said, wiping her hands on her apron. "But the squirrels got to them before I did." Franklin smiled. "I'll build you a cage around them next weekend." She sat down across from him, studied his face the way only a mother can, looking past the smile, past the title, past all of it. "You be careful driving home tonight. Mama, I've been driving that road for 30 years. That's not what I mean." She paused. "They don't always see the badge first, baby. They see the skin." Franklin reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "Times are changing, Mama." She didn't answer, just looked at him the way she always did when he said something she wanted to believe but couldn't. He left around 7, kissed her forehead, grabbed the tin of shortbread cookies she'd packed for Ruth, placed his thermos of coffee in the cup holder, turned the gospel station on low, and pulled out of the driveway. He was wearing a navy polo shirt and khaki pants. No uniform, no insignia. His official credentials, the superintendent's gold shield and ID wallet, sat in the glove box. He'd put them there when he changed out of his dress uniform earlier that afternoon. Just a man, driving home, on a Saturday night. The road from Greenville to the capital cut straight through Carroll County. Flat land, cotton fields, a sky so wide it made everything underneath feel small. Carroll County, population 18,000, overwhelmingly white, one of the poorest counties in the state, 3 stoplights, a sheriff's department with 22 deputies and a reputation that traveled further than any of them ever would. The kind of place where everybody knew everybody, and everybody who looked like Franklin was nobody. 2 consecutive DOJ reports had flagged the county for disproportionate stops of Black and Latino drivers. The numbers weren't even close. Black drivers made up 9% of the county's population, but 41% of all traffic stops. The previous sheriff had retired quietly rather than face a federal inquiry. His replacement hadn't changed much. Franklin knew these numbers. He'd read them in his first week as superintendent. They were the reason he'd drafted a statewide use-of-force audit. The memo went out 10 days ago. Some departments had already pushed back. Carroll County hadn't even responded, but that was a problem for Monday morning. Tonight, Franklin was just driving, windows cracked, cool October air coming through, coffee going cold in the thermos, thinking about the cage he'd build around his mother's tomato plants. Then he saw headlights in his rearview mirror. A patrol SUV, coming up fast, then slowing down, pulling close, dropping back, accelerating again, pacing him. Franklin checked his speedometer. 53 in a 55 zone. He signaled, moved to the right lane. The SUV followed. He took a slow breath, placed both hands on the steering wheel, turned the radio off. He'd done this before, not as superintendent, not as a federal agent, as a black man in America. The lights came on. The siren chirped once, and Franklin Taylor pulled over to the gravel shoulder of Highway 31, the same way he'd been taught to do since he was 16 years old. 2 doors opened on the patrol SUV, one on each side. Officer Derek Holloway came from the driver's side, 34 years old, 9 years on the force, built like a man who spent more time in the gym than on paperwork. He walked with the kind of swagger that said he'd never once been told no, not by a suspect, not by a supervisor, not by anyone in this county who mattered. Officer Craig Sutton flanked the passenger side, 29, 4 years in, the kind of cop who'd never lead but would always follow, especially if the man in front was laughing. Holloway's flashlight came on before he reached the window. He didn't aim it at the road, didn't sweep the vehicle. He pointed it directly at Franklin's face, held it there, let it burn. License and registration. Franklin already had them ready. He extended the documents through the window, slowly, the way his father taught him. No sudden movements, nothing that could be misunderstood. Holloway took the license, tilted it under the flashlight, read the name out loud. Franklin J. Taylor. He looked at Sutton. That name ring a bell? Sutton shrugged. Nope. It should have. It was on every statewide law enforcement bulletin sent out 3 weeks ago, but Carroll County didn't read statewide bulletins. Carroll County read whatever it wanted. Holloway leaned into the window, close enough that Franklin could smell the chewing tobacco on his breath. Where you coming from tonight, Franklin? Not Mr. Taylor, not Sir. First name, like he was addressing a child. My mother's house, in Greenville. Your mother's house? Holloway repeated it slowly, tasting each word like it was a lie. At this hour, in this car. He tapped the Audi's roof with his knuckle. What do you do for a living, Franklin? I'm in law enforcement. Something flickered in Holloway's eyes. Not recognition, irritation. The answer didn't fit the box he'd already built in his head. Law enforcement. He smiled. Not a real smile. The kind that came right before something ugly. What? Like security guard? Mall cop? State level. Holloway stared at him for a long 3 seconds. Then he stepped back from the window, clicked his radio, and read the plate number to dispatch. But he didn't wait for the return. He turned to Sutton. I already know what we've got here. Step out of the vehicle. Franklin didn't move immediately. Officer, can you tell me why I was pulled over? Holloway tilted his head. You want reasons? Here's one. I don't like the way you looked at me when I walked up. I'm looking straight ahead, officer. Yeah? Well, I don't like that either. He pulled the door open. Out. Now. And keep your hands where I can see them. I'm not about to get jumped tonight. Franklin unbuckled the seatbelt slowly, opened the door, stepped out onto the gravel shoulder with both hands raised to chest level, palms open. He stood to his full height, 6'3", a full head taller than Holloway. That changed something. Franklin saw it happen in real time, the shift in Holloway's posture, the jaw tightening, the flashlight redirecting from his face to his chest like a weapon being repositioned. Small men with big authority do not like looking up. Hands on the hood. Franklin placed his palms flat on the warm metal. The engine had been running for 90 miles. He could feel the heat through his skin. Holloway moved behind him. The pat-down started at the shoulders. It was rough from the first touch, not the quick professional check of an officer looking for weapons. This was slow, deliberate, hands pressing too hard on the rib cage, fingers digging into the waistband, lingering. Franklin stared at the tree line ahead, kept breathing. You carrying anything I should know about? Holloway asked. Guns, drugs, warrants? No. No what? No, sir. Holloway's hands moved down to his ankles, squeezed one, then the other, then stood up and walked back around to face him. Clean. Huh? He sounded disappointed, like a fisherman pulling up an empty hook. The radio crackled. Dispatch came back on the plate, registered to Franklin J. Taylor. No warrants, no flags, no history. The cleanest return a traffic stop could produce. Sutton relayed it. He's clean, Holloway. Holloway didn't blink. Clean plate doesn't mean a clean conscience. He circled Franklin like he was studying an animal in a pen. Slow. Hands on his belt. Flashlight swinging. Then he stopped. You know what? I smell something. Franklin closed his eyes for half a second. He knew what was coming. I smell marijuana. There is no marijuana in this vehicle, officer. I don't use it. Holloway leaned in, close, too close. Well, I smell it, and that... He tapped Franklin's chest with one finger. Gives me probable cause. The classic line. The oldest trick in every dirty cop's playbook. Franklin had heard it 1,000 times. In case files, in depositions, in body camera footage he'd reviewed during federal investigations. He knew exactly what it was. But knowing didn't change anything. Not on this road, not at this hour, not when the man saying it had a badge, a gun, and a partner who'd back up every word. Franklin kept his voice level. No emotion, just procedure. Officer, I'd like your badge number and your supervisor's name. The air changed. Holloway's smirk vanished. His jaw locked. He stepped forward until his face was inches from Franklin's. You want my supervisor? His voice dropped low, almost a whisper. You're gonna need more than a supervisor before this night is over. He turned to Sutton. Search the car. Franklin spoke clearly, loud enough for the body cameras. I do not consent to a search of my vehicle. Holloway looked at him, looked through him, then shrugged. Noted. Sutton opened the driver's door anyway. Sutton moved through the car like he owned it. Center console first. He popped it open, rifled through. Napkins, a phone charger, a pen from a hotel Franklin had stayed at during a conference. Sutton tossed each item onto the passenger seat without looking, then the glove box. Franklin's chest tightened, not visibly, not in any way the officers could read, but inside, a single precise spike of tension. Because inside that glove box sat the leather credential wallet, the gold superintendent's shield, the ID card with his photo, his title, and the state seal embossed in the corner. Sutton pulled the glove box open, reached in, his fingers touched the wallet, and pushed it aside. Didn't open it, didn't flip it, just shoved it to the back like it was junk and kept digging behind it. He found nothing, because there was nothing to find. Sutton moved to the back seat, pulled out the tin of shortbread cookies Franklin's mother had packed for Ruth, opened it, sniffed it, dropped it on the floor. Cookies scattered across the mat, the same cookies his mother had spent the afternoon baking. The thermos rolled off the seat and clanked against the doorframe. Franklin heard every sound. The crinkle of the tin lid, the dull thud of the thermos, small violations. But each one landed somewhere deep, in the place where a man keeps the things he can't say out loud. Sutton backed out. Clean. Holloway didn't look relieved. He looked annoyed. The kind of annoyance that comes when the story you've already written in your head doesn't match the evidence. Pop the trunk. There's nothing in the trunk, officer. I didn't ask what's in it. I said pop it. Franklin didn't move. Holloway reached through the open driver's door and hit the trunk release himself. The trunk held 3 things: a gym bag, a folded American flag in a triangular case, from a ceremony honoring fallen officers that Franklin had attended 2 weeks ago, and a cardboard box of books he was donating to his mother's church. Holloway unzipped the gym bag, dumped it upside down. Workout clothes, a pair of running shoes, and a towel spilled onto the gravel shoulder. He kicked through them with his boot. Nothing. He opened the box of books, picked one up, read the spine, tossed it onto the ground, picked up another, tossed it. A Bible landed face down in the dirt. Sutton watched from the side, arms crossed. Smiling. Not the smile of a man who thought they'd find something. the smile of a man enjoying the show. Holloway slammed the trunk shut, walked back to Franklin, who was still standing with his palms flat on the hood, exactly where he'd been told to stand, exactly as compliant as any officer could ask a man to be. "Well, Franklin." Holloway stopped in front of him, rocked on his heels. "You're clean, I'll give you that." Pause. "But I don't like your attitude." Franklin's voice was measured, controlled, every word chosen. "I've been cooperative from the moment you approached my vehicle, officer." "See, that." Holloway pointed at Franklin's face. "That right there. That's what I'm talking about." He leaned in. "You think you're smarter than me. I'm answering your questions." "No, you're performing. You think because you use big words and stand up straight, you're better than us." Holloway's voice turned cold. "You're not. You never will be. And this right here?" He gestured at the Audi, the books on the ground, the flag in the trunk. "All of this doesn't change what you are." Franklin said nothing. He looked at Holloway the way a man looks at a storm he knows is coming, not with fear, but with the exhausted understanding that nothing he does will stop it. "I'd like to request a supervisor." Holloway smiled, the worst kind, the kind that meant he'd already decided what came next. "A supervisor, sure." He keyed his radio. "Dispatch, can you send Whitfield out to Highway 31? Got a situation." He clicked off, looked at Franklin. "Happy now?" Franklin wasn't happy, but he was patient. And patience, in moments like this, was the only weapon a man without a visible badge was allowed to carry. They stood there, Franklin with his hands on the hood, Holloway circling behind him, Sutton leaning against the patrol SUV, scrolling his phone. The October wind moved through the cotton fields. Somewhere far away, a dog barked. And 8 minutes later, a third set of headlights appeared on Highway 31. Sergeant Vance Whitfield stepped out of the third patrol vehicle like a man arriving late to a party he didn't want to attend. 46 years old, 21 years on the force. The kind of supervisor who kept his job not because he was good at it, but because he never made waves. He signed reports without reading them, answered complaints with form letters, and when his officers did things they shouldn't, which was often, Whitfield looked the other way with the practiced ease of a man who'd been doing it his entire career. He walked over slowly, saw Franklin pressed against the hood, saw Holloway standing behind him with his arms crossed, saw Sutton leaning against the SUV still grinning. He didn't ask if Franklin was okay. He didn't ask why a man with no warrants, no weapons, and no contraband was being held on the hood of his own car. He asked one question. "What do we got?" Holloway grinned. "DWB. Driving while black," said like a joke, delivered like a punchline they'd used 100 times before. Whitfield snorted. Not a laugh. Worse. The sound of a man who thought it was funny but didn't want to commit to saying so out loud. He walked over to Franklin, picked the driver's license off the hood where Holloway had left it, tilted it under his flashlight, read the name, looked at the face, looked at the name again. Nothing registered. He tossed the license back onto the hood. "Process him or cut him loose. I'm not doing the paperwork on this." Franklin spoke from the hood. Calm, clear. Each word aimed at the body cameras. "Sergeant, I am requesting that dispatch be contacted to verify my identity." Whitfield stopped walking. Something in the way Franklin said it, not the words themselves, but the precision behind them. The kind of sentence that came from a man who had sat on the other side of an interrogation table. Who knew what words would matter later, in a courtroom, on a recording, in front of a jury? Whitfield hesitated. For 1/2 second, something in his gut told him to listen, to pick up that license again, to actually look, but he shook it off, waved his hand. "You'll get your phone call at the station." He turned his back and walked to his cruiser. That was his last chance. He didn't take it. Holloway watched Whitfield walk away, and something shifted in his face, the last flicker of restraint going out like a pilot light. He turned back to Franklin. "So, your supervisor's here." He spread his hands wide. "Feel better? Feel safe now?" Franklin didn't answer. He kept his palms flat on the hood, kept his breathing even, kept his eyes on the tree line. Nothing to say? Holloway stepped closer. "See, that's the problem with your kind. You talk real big when you think someone's watching, but the second you realize nobody gives a damn..." He leaned in. "You go quiet, like the animals you are." He grabbed the back of Franklin's neck. Not fast, slow, deliberate, the way you grab something you want to feel squirm. "I asked you a question. I have nothing further to say, officer. I want this interaction documented." Documented. Holloway laughed, a short, ugly bark. "You hear that, Sutton? He wants this documented." He squeezed harder. "Let me document something for you." He yanked Franklin off the hood, spun him, and drove him face first into the asphalt. Not the controlled takedown they teach at the academy. Not the kind that goes into a training manual. This was personal. This was a man who wanted to hear the sound of another man's body hitting the ground. Franklin's cheek hit the road. The gravel bit into his skin, tiny sharp teeth that tore through the surface and held on. His palms scraped the asphalt. His shoulder twisted at an angle that sent a white flash of pain up through his neck. Holloway's knee came down on his spine. Full weight, pressing, grinding. "Stay down!" Franklin tasted blood, grit between his teeth, the cold of the asphalt soaking through his polo shirt. He could feel the gravel embedded in his cheek, not just on the surface, but in it, each piece a small, precise wound. He didn't struggle, didn't shout. A 28-year career had taught him what happens when a black man moves too fast under a white officer's knee. He knew the statistics, he knew the headlines, he knew the names of men who didn't make it home. So he lay still, and he endured. Sutton stood over them, pulled out his phone. "Yo, Holloway, hold that pose!" He took a photo, then another, then a short video, laughing the entire time. "This is going in the group chat. The boys are gonna love this." Holloway didn't just hold the pose. He pressed harder, adjusted his knee so it dug into the soft tissue between Franklin's shoulder blades, leaned down close to his ear. "You feel that? That's the natural order. You on the ground, me on top. The way it's supposed to be." Franklin spoke. His voice came out pressed, thin, but every word was clear. "Everything you are doing right now is being recorded by your body cameras." Holloway didn't flinch. "Yeah? And who's gonna watch it?" He looked up at Sutton. "Who watches body cam footage in this county?" Sutton shrugged. "Nobody." "Nobody." Holloway repeated it like a verdict. "See, Franklin? That's the thing you don't understand. Out here, there's the law, and then there's us. And tonight?" He pressed his knee down one more time. "We are the law." Whitfield was leaning against his cruiser 15 feet away. He saw everything. The knee, the blood, the phone, the laughter. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He checked his watch. The October wind carried the sound of their laughter across the cotton fields. Empty land in every direction. No witnesses, no houses, no headlights. Just 3 officers, 1 man on the ground, and a radio that was about to change everything. 23 miles away, in the Carroll County Dispatch Center, Elaine Brooks sat behind 3 monitors and a radio console that hadn't been updated since 2014. She was 38, 12 years on dispatch, the kind of operator who ran every name twice, not because the system required it, but because she'd learned that the system missed things when you only looked once. The plate return on the black Audi had come back clean 10 minutes ago. She'd relayed it to Unit 14 and moved on to the next call. A noise complaint on Birch Street, a broken streetlight on Route 9, Saturday night in Carroll County, slow enough to bore you, busy enough to keep the coffee going. But something nagged at her. Franklin J. Taylor. She'd seen that name, not in the system, not on a warrant, somewhere else, somewhere recent. She pulled up the statewide law enforcement bulletin board, the one that Carroll County deputies were supposed to read every morning but never did. She scrolled back 3 weeks, and there it was, a photo of a tall black man in full-dress uniform shaking hands with Governor Caldwell. a gold shield on his chest, a headline in bold letters across the top of the bulletin. Governor Caldwell appoints Franklin J. Taylor as State Police Superintendent. Elaine's coffee cup stopped halfway to her mouth. She put it down, read the name again, checked the plate return, checked the name on the license that Holloway had called in. Letter by letter, Franklin J. Taylor, same man. Her hand went to the radio. She keyed the mic, kept her voice professional, controlled, the way they trained you. Unit 14, dispatch, static. Then Holloway's voice, casual, almost bored. Go ahead, dispatch. Unit 14, I need you to confirm the identity of your stop subject. Name Franklin J. Taylor. A pause. Holloway again, annoyed now. Yeah, we got a Franklin Taylor. What about it? Elaine closed her eyes, opened them, pressed the mic again. This time her voice was different, higher, faster, the professional mask cracking at the edges. Unit 14, I need you to listen very carefully. Your stop subject, Franklin J. Taylor, is the newly appointed State Police Superintendent. I repeat, State Police Superintendent. Do you copy? Silence. Not the silence of a man thinking. The silence of a world rearranging itself. On Highway 31, the radio was mounted on Holloway's shoulder. The words came through at full volume, every syllable crisp, every word landing like a hammer on glass. State Police Superintendent. Holloway's knee was still on Franklin's back. His hand was still pressing the man's head toward the asphalt. His partner was still standing over them with a phone in his hand. And then, nothing moved. Holloway's knee didn't press down. It didn't lift. It just froze, locked in place by a brain that hadn't yet figured out what to tell the body. Sutton lowered his phone, slowly, like a man realizing he'd just photographed his own execution. 15 feet away, Whitfield pushed off his cruiser. The phone slipped from his hand and hit the gravel. He didn't pick it up. The radio crackled again. Elaine's voice, no longer calm, no longer professional, urgent, almost pleading. Sergeant Whitfield, confirm that the subject is unharmed. I am escalating to Captain Davis at Internal Affairs, effective immediately. All body camera footage from units on scene is now flagged for preservation. Do you copy? Whitfield opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. The laughter was gone. The grins were gone. The jokes, the nicknames, the swagger, all of it evaporated in the space between two radio transmissions. What replaced it was something these men had never felt on this road, in this county, in their entire careers. Fear. Franklin lay on the asphalt for 3 more seconds. Not because he couldn't move, because he wanted them to feel it, the weight of what they'd done, the full crushing gravity of a mistake that could never be undone. Then he spoke, quiet, steady. The same voice he'd used all night, but now it carried something different. Not anger, authority. I believe you heard the dispatcher, Sergeant. I'd like to stand up now. Whitfield's voice cracked. Holloway, let him up, now. Holloway pulled his knee back like the ground had burned him, stepped away. His hands were shaking, not a little, visibly. The kind of shaking that starts in the fingers and moves up through the arms until a man can't hold his own flashlight. Franklin stood, slowly, the way a man stands when he wants every second of it to be remembered. He brushed the gravel from his cheek, picked a small stone embedded in his palm, looked at the blood on his fingers, then looked at each officer in turn. Holloway, Sutton, Whitfield, one by one, not with anger, not with triumph, with the exhausted clarity of a man who had spent 28 years watching this exact scene play out and had finally lived it himself. He walked to his car, opened the glove box, removed the leather credential wallet that Sutton had pushed aside without opening, flipped it open. The gold shield caught the red and blue lights from the patrol vehicles. It flashed once, twice. Franklin held it up, not to show off, to show them what they refused to see. You asked me earlier who was going to watch that body camera footage. He straightened his polo, blood on his collar, gravel dust on his chest. I am. He paused. Let the silence hold. I was driving to the Capitol tonight to finalize a statewide use of force audit. I think I just found where to start. Holloway spoke first. The words came out fast, stumbling over each other like a man trying to outrun something that had already caught him. Sir, Superintendent, I didn't know who you... Franklin raised one hand. Holloway stopped mid-sentence. His mouth stayed open, but nothing else came out. You didn't know who I was? Franklin's voice was level, almost conversational. And that's exactly the point, Officer Holloway. He took one step forward. Holloway took one step back. What would you have done if I were just Franklin Taylor? No title, no badge, no gold shield in the glove box. He held Holloway's gaze. We both already know the answer, because you already did it. Holloway's chin dropped. His hands, the same hands that had driven Franklin into the asphalt, hung at his sides like they didn't belong to him anymore. Sutton hadn't said a word since the radio transmission. He stood frozen beside the patrol SUV, phone still in his hand. The phone that held the photos, the video, the evidence he'd created with a grin on his face 60 seconds ago. Now that phone felt like a grenade with the pin already pulled. Whitfield tried next, hands up, palms out, already rehearsing his defense. Superintendent Taylor, I want you to know, I was about to intervene. I was assessing the situation. Sergeant. Franklin's voice cut through the night air. You arrived. You saw me face down on the pavement with blood on my face. You heard your officers laughing and you asked, what do we got? Then you checked your watch. Whitfield's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Don't rewrite what I lived through. I was there. And so were your body cameras. Whitfield said nothing after that. There was nothing left to say. Franklin dialed his phone. 2 rings. Captain Davis, this is Superintendent Taylor. I need an internal affairs team at my location immediately. Highway 31, Carroll County, mile marker 12. A pause. Yes, I'm the complainant. He looked at the 3 officers standing like men waiting for a verdict they already knew. You will remain on scene. You will not discuss this incident with each other. You will not review, delete, or tamper with any recordings on your body cameras or personal devices. He said it once. He didn't need to say it twice. 26 minutes later, 2 unmarked sedans and a state police cruiser pulled up. Captain Nora Davis stepped out first, tall, sharp-eyed, moving with the deliberate urgency of a woman who had never once arrived at a scene hoping to find what she usually found. She saw Franklin, saw the blood on his cheek, the gravel in his palm, the torn collar. She didn't ask if he was okay. She could see the answer. Walk me through it, Superintendent. Franklin gave his statement the way he'd given 1,000 reports, calmly, chronologically, without embellishment. A man who had written hundreds of incident reports from the other side. Tonight, for the first time, he dictated one from this side. Davis's team collected body cameras from all 3 officers, removed, bagged, labeled. Holloway's personal phone was seized. He didn't resist. He didn't have the nerve left to try. Then came the words none of them had ever heard directed at themselves. Officer Holloway, Officer Sutton, Sergeant Whitfield, you are hereby placed on immediate administrative suspension, pending investigation. Surrender your badges and service weapons. Holloway unclipped his badge with trembling fingers. The metal caught the light as he placed it in Davis's open palm. The same badge he'd tapped against his belt an hour ago, like it made him untouchable. Sutton handed his over without looking up. His jaw was clenched so tight the muscles in his neck stood out like cables. Whitfield was last. He held his badge for 3 seconds, maybe 4, before letting it go. 21 years, gone in the time it takes to exhale. Franklin drove the remaining 40 miles to the Capitol alone. No radio, no music. Just tires on asphalt and the kind of silence that fills a car when a man is carrying something too heavy for words. At mile 30, he called Ruth. Hey, I'm running late. How bad? Bad enough. She didn't ask anything else. 30 years of marriage had taught her when to push and when to wait. This was a wait. He pulled into the driveway just after midnight, sat in the dark for a long time, touched his cheek. The gravel imprint was still there, raised edges in the skin like a road map pressed into flesh. He didn't wash it off until morning. The body camera footage told a story that none of the 3 officers could rewrite. Captain Davis sat in the Internal Affairs review room at 7 the next morning, Sunday, and watched every second from every angle. Holloway's camera, Sutton's camera, Whitfield's dash cam. Holloway's camera was the worst, not because of what it showed during the stop, though that was damning enough. It was what it captured before, the 3 seconds before he even reached Franklin's window. Holloway walking toward the Audi, turning to his partner's camera with a grin. "You know what I love about Saturday nights? Finding one of these guys driving a car too nice for his paycheck." That sentence, recorded, time-stamped, preserved in high-definition audio on a device issued by the county he served. Sutton's camera caught the rest. The takedown, the knee, the laughter. Saturday night entertainment. The phone coming out. The photos being taken while a man bled on the pavement. And Whitfield's dashcam, mounted on his cruiser, wide angle, unobstructed, captured what might have been the most devastating footage of all. Not violence, indifference. A sergeant arriving on scene, seeing a man pinned to the ground with blood on his face and leaning against his car to check his watch. Davis flagged every second, logged every violation. Then she opened Holloway's personal phone. What she found turned a single traffic stop into the biggest law enforcement scandal the state had seen in a decade. A group chat, 6 other officers, 18 months of messages. The chat was called Saturday Specials. The name alone would have been enough. But the contents were worse. Photos, dozens of them. Black and Latino motorists, face down on the pavement, pressed against hoods, kneeling on roadsides, each one accompanied by a caption. Laughing emojis, inside jokes, rankings. Holloway had posted the photo of Franklin within minutes of taking it. His caption, "Got another one." 12 responses within the hour, thumbs up. Fire emojis. One reply that read, "Bro, you're on a streak." A streak. That's what they called it. A streak. Davis cross-referenced the photos with incident reports. Most of the stops had no corresponding report at all. The ones that did were marked verbal warning, released. No mention of force. No mention of searches. No mention of men being driven into the asphalt while officers laughed and took pictures. The victims in those photos, the ones who didn't have a gold shield in their glove box, had gone home bruised, humiliated, and silent. Because who would they report it to? The same department that did it? The investigation expanded within 48 hours. What began as one traffic stop became a federal civil rights case involving 9 officers, 31 documented stops, and at least 14 victims. The story broke on a Tuesday. A local journalist named Rachel Whitmore at the Carroll County Register had been working the courthouse beat for 6 years. She received a tip, not from the state police, not from Internal Affairs, but from a dispatcher who couldn't sleep. Elaine Brooks didn't leak the footage. She didn't have access to it. But she told Rachel enough to point her in the right direction. Rachel filed a public records request. The county fought it for 72 hours. A judge ordered the release. The body camera footage hit the internet on a Thursday afternoon. By Friday morning, 40 million people had watched Holloway grin into the camera and say, "One of these guys." By Friday night, the number was 90 million. The clip of Sutton saying better than Netflix became its own phenomenon, remixed, quoted, screen-printed onto protest signs outside the Carroll County Courthouse. Hashtags multiplied. Hashtag Justice for Franklin trended for 6 consecutive days. Hashtag Saturday Night Entertainment, used with bitter surgical sarcasm, became the banner of a movement that stretched far beyond one county in the rural South. Governor Caldwell held a press conference. He stood behind a podium with the state seal and said what politicians say when the cameras are rolling and the damage is already done. But this time, he meant it. What happened on Highway 31 was not an isolated incident. It was a symptom of a system that has failed the people it swore to protect. And that system ends now. He announced his full support for Superintendent Taylor's use of force audit. He called for the immediate resignation of the Carroll County Sheriff, and he asked the Department of Justice to intervene. The sheriff resigned the next morning. No statement, no press conference, just a letter on county letterhead 2 sentences long. 3 of the other victims from the group chat came forward. One was a 26-year-old school teacher who had been pulled over on the same stretch of Highway 31 8 months earlier. He'd been dragged out of his car, forced to kneel on the shoulder, and photographed. He never reported it. He told a reporter, "Who was I going to tell? They were the law out there." Another was a 59-year-old grandmother driving home from church on a Wednesday evening. She'd been pulled over, searched, and told, in her words, to go back where she came from. She lived 4 miles from the spot where they stopped her. Their stories were devastating, and they were consistent. The same officers, the same road, the same laughter. District Attorney Philip Moore filed charges on a Monday. Federal charges under 18 U.S.C. Section 242, deprivation of rights under color of law. The kind of charges that don't get pleaded down. The kind that end careers, take pensions, and close cell doors. The trial lasted 11 days. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Derek Holloway, assault under color of law, civil rights conspiracy, sentenced to 6 years in federal prison. The judge noted the Saturday Specials group chat as an aggravating factor, evidence not of a mistake, but of a pattern. Craig Sutton, assault under color of law, civil rights violations, 4 years. His attorney argued that Sutton was a follower, not a leader. The judge responded, "Following an order to violate a man's civil rights does not reduce culpability. It confirms it." Vance Whitfield, failure to intervene, obstruction, civil rights violations, 3 years, permanent decertification. He would never carry a badge again. 21 years of looking the other way, and the road finally looked back. 4 additional officers from the group chat faced separate indictments. The investigations were ongoing. The Department of Justice imposed a consent decree on the Carroll County Sheriff's Department, the same department that had been flagged in 2 consecutive DOJ reports and had done nothing. This time, nothing was no longer an option. Franklin Taylor didn't hold a press conference after the verdict. He didn't give interviews. He didn't post a statement on social media. He went back to work. The statewide use of force audit, the one he'd been driving to finalize the night he was stopped, launched 6 weeks after the trial ended. It became the most comprehensive reform program in the state's history. Mandatory de-escalation training for every officer, every department, every county. Body camera compliance tied directly to state funding. No footage, no money. An independent oversight board with civilian members who had subpoena power. And a new policy that required dispatchers to cross-reference the names of all stop subjects against law enforcement databases in real time. That last one was Franklin's idea. He called it the Brooks Protocol, named after the dispatcher who recognized his name when no one else bothered to look. In his first year as superintendent, excessive force complaints dropped 34% statewide. In Carroll County, they dropped 61%. Not because the officers suddenly became better people, because they knew someone was watching. Franklin still drives to Greenville every Saturday. Same Audi, same highway, same thermos of coffee, same gospel station on low, but now the credential wallet rides in his shirt pocket, not the glove box. Derek Holloway is serving his sentence at a federal correctional facility in Alabama. His appeal was denied. The photo he took of Franklin, the one he posted in the group chat with a laughing emoji, was Exhibit A. It will follow him for the rest of his life. Craig Sutton is in a facility in Georgia. In a recorded jailhouse call 3 months into his sentence, he told his brother, "I just did what everyone else was doing." His brother's response, "That's not the defense you think it is." Vance Whitfield was released after 22 months, permanently decertified. He will never carry a badge again. He works at a hardware store in a town 40 miles from Carroll County. He told a reporter he was scapegoated. The reporter asked if he'd watched the body camera footage. Whitfield didn't answer. The Carroll County Sheriff's Department operates under a federal consent decree. New sheriff, new training, new rules. The culture is changing, slowly. the way cultures do when they've been rotting for decades and someone finally opens the windows. 3 of the victims from the Saturday Specials group chat received civil settlements. 1, the 26-year-old schoolteacher, testified before Congress in a hearing on police accountability. He wore a suit his mother bought him for the occasion. He spoke for 11 minutes. The room was silent for every one of them. And in Greenville, in a small house with a garden full of tomato plants now protected by a wire cage her son built, Ruth Taylor Sr. watched the verdict on the evening news. She saw the footage. She saw her son's face pressed into the gravel. She saw the blood. She saw the officers laughing. And then she saw him stand up. When a reporter asked Franklin after the trial if he was angry, he said, "Anger is a starting point, not a destination." His mother called him that night. She said, "I told you they don't always see the badge first." He said, "I know, Mama. That's why I'm making sure they don't need to." So here's what I want to know. Have you ever been in a situation where people only treated you with respect once they found out your title, your position, or who you were connected to? Where you were invisible until you became inconvenient to disrespect? Drop your story in the comments, because every story shared is a story that can't be ignored. If this made you feel something, anger, hope, maybe both, share it. Send it to someone who needs to hear it, because silence is how this keeps happening. And if you're new here, subscribe. We tell stories like this every week. Stories about people who stood tall when the world tried to push them down. Because sometimes justice doesn't knock on the door. Sometimes it stands up from the asphalt, brushes the gravel off its face, and holds up a badge that changes everything.